Welcome to the Old Mac Gang podcast, or OMG, a podcast vodcast with a panel of longtime Mac Apple users who want to discuss the most relevant apps and services to age-seasoned users. I'm Marty Gensius, an Apple enthusiast podcaster. I'm 67 years old, and I've collected a great group of friends to talk about Apple and how it affects us as seasoned citizens. Let's see who we have on the panel today.
Hey, I'm Chris. I'm 77 years old at this point. I've been around the Mac since 1984. Did a lot with Apple user groups, and then I got a chance to work for Apple, did some university IT, and now I'm retired here in beautiful Tucson, Arizona. And I am currently running an M1 Mac Mini and an iPhone 16 Pro Max, a Watch Series 6, iPad, I think 8th generation, 9th generation, can't remember. And I'm thoroughly enjoying it. Peter?
I'm Peter. I'm 72 and live quite near the shore of Lake Erie in Ohio, near Gary and Marty. I am an avid user of many Apple products and services, including a current laptop, current iPad, current iPhone, a fairly recent Apple Watch, and many accessories. I use all of these daily to pursue my current interests, such as hiking, watching films, attempting to influence our government, enjoying music, and playing with math.
And I'm Bob Wood. I'm also in Tucson. I am a 70-something seasoned Mac user and a seasoned Mac user group member and officer. I have been in Mac user groups not only in Tucson, but also at my former location in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Gary?
I'm Gary. I live in Cleveland, Ohio, near Marty and Peter. I'm grateful that Marty found Bob and Chris in Tucson. I'm a member of the Northeast Ohio Mac Users Group, where I met Marty and Peter. And each day I look forward to using mostly my Mac Mini, my Apple Watch, and my iPhone. Marty?
Thanks, everybody. And generally, we start out with some news of the week, and I don't know if there is any real Apple-related news that touches what we're doing, but I have a Apple Watch story to tell you. Sunday, I was feeling lousy. Still managed to produce 2 podcasts, but I was feeling lousy, and just couldn't shake it. And thought I just didn't get enough sleep, something like that. But my watch kept telling me that I had abnormal heart rates going on. And I thought, well, it's just because I didn't get enough sleep, etc. I don't want to worry about it because, frankly, I had 2 full-day meetings that I was chairing to do a institutional site visit with. And so, my thing was I just need to get through these next 2 days and then I'll worry about it. Well, I made the fatal mistake that every husband makes. I told my wife the next morning. And she was like, "You're going to go now. I don't care." And I said, "No, I just, it's fine today. I'm not getting these warnings anyways." And so she said, "Well, call the nurse." So I called the nurse, and I didn't know my doctor had office hours at 6:00. So he's like, "Well, can you come in at 6?" I'm like, "Sure, great." So ran over there. He looked at the data on my iPhone. And when I finally looked at the data on my iPhone, it had been recording all day long, like every 2 to 3 minutes. And it was kind of scary when I looked at it. It was like, holy cow. He looked at the data and he goes, "Yep, AFib." He didn't need anything more. However, we're doing more testing, and I've got more devices to do that with and deal with it, but and more tests coming up. But he was like, we need to track this now. Here's some things you need to do to be careful if this happens again or you start to feel this way. He did a strip on me, he drew blood work. He did the usual things. But he was a big endorser of the Apple Watch and how it's connected to the health app for catching these kinds of things. He said, these are like 98%. And when it shows up, 98%, it's right on target with what it is. It doesn't make a lot of errors. Surprisingly enough, the person who was his assistant came in and the tech assistant and said, yeah, I used to work for a cardiologist. And he said, the cardiologist wished that everybody had Apple Watches just for this kind of detection. So it was kind of a nice endorsement. I'm now wearing a button, to register my heart for the next 2 weeks, as long as I can. And if I feel any irregularities, I'm supposed to press the button. But, and that, it's collecting the data, but that's kind of signaling to them this is an irregularity. But what I've been doing is charging people a quarter to press the button for me, and send in a bunch of false positives. No, I'm not doing that, but I thought about it. So we'll see how that thing turns out. But for years, I've been kind of telling my wife, oh, but it's got all these metrics on it. It's got all this health stuff. And that was the excuse just to get the new watch. Well, it actually turned out to be effective and meaningful in my personal situation. So that's my news for this week. In addition to that, looks like my son is getting a new iPad, meaning the iPad that I was going to sell back to Apple, but they didn't give me enough money. So I'm instead going to be giving it to him, and he'll have it to use. And it is a good iPad. It's an M4 Pro. And I had 2 Pro iPads, and I'm like, I don't need 2 of them. I'll sell one back to Apple, and I got a iPad Air, the latest iPad Air. But when I looked at it, it's sort of like I'm just getting a couple of $100, less than a couple $100 back from an M4 Pro. And I said, I'd just rather spend that couple of $100 on my son and get him a new iPad, because I know he's not up to speed with that and will use it. So that's my bit of news. Anything new in your worlds? Nope. Okay. Well, today we're going to talk about public Wi-Fi and safety. I looked back on previous shows and we talked about internet scams, and we mentioned a little bit about VPNs on there. But we just are kind of dedicating this to public Wi-Fi use. And, that became an issue with myself and my son. He's traveling for business now, and he's going to be out in Las Vegas for at least a couple of weeks, working out there and staying in a hotel that they're putting him up in that has terrible public Wi-Fi. Or at least in the past it had. He might be in a different hotel this time because the business is at a different location. But he was concerned about having good Wi-Fi and having to safely rely on public Wi-Fi. And I thought, that's an issue for all of us, particularly if we're mobile with our devices or we take them somewhere. Having access to Wi-Fi may be important, but many folks don't think about the precautions that are necessary. So thought it would be a good topic. I don't know how deep it's going to be or how long it's going to be in terms of a discussion, but I have the first question, which is, how do you determine whether a public Wi-Fi network is safe to use, and what red flags should older adults look for before connecting? Bob?
Well, for myself, I try to refrain from using sensitive activities on public Wi-Fi, like banking and other things. I just use it for a little browsing, some news reading, and the like. If there's anything I need to do away from the home in those sensitive areas, I try to do it by using my phone to give my iPad a signal.
Yeah.
And yeah, Peter.
Okay. Well, I guess I would say that I don't consider any public Wi-Fi to be safe, and I thought about that a little when you announced the topic, because I really don't know any victims of cyber attacks that I could attribute to going on public Wi-Fi, unlike something like phishing, where I've met several. Uh, but nonetheless, I'm overly cautious. There was a time several years ago when I borrowed some network traffic hardware and software and looked at, what kinds of pings and attempts to connect were happening in my home. And I also checked out the library, my school, a few other places. And at home, almost nothing. And everywhere I went, I was getting a lot of, failed attempts uh, to connect to my devices. So I have a couple of rules that I follow because I'm overly cautious. I generally avoid connecting directly to a public Wi Fi. I will hotspot through my phone rather than connect at a Starbucks. Or if I have to connect to a public Wi Fi, I'll use a virtual private network so it's not a direct connection, that it's encrypted and goes through it. Secondly, I follow Bob's rules. I don't access any money accounts in a public place, partly because I feel I'm visible to others. So I restrict anything I would do, even in those places, to something like reading news or surfing the web. I don't check my email. I don't go on Amazon, particularly anything that has my credit card and could spend money. And I guess a third thing, which isn't directly connecting, but I have set up all of my money accounts with a two-factor authentication or passkeys. And I feel, despite my overly cautiousness, I feel pretty safe following those rules.
Well, I'm not around public Wi-Fi that much, and I was trying to think of some cases yesterday and today, and of course, as Marty, as you pointed out, your son Will is, going to be traveling, and in Las Vegas, there's going to be lots of public Wi-Fi around. I guess the thing, I don't know how much I can add to what Bob and Peter said, except to remember how easy it is to slip. You think, okay, I'm just going to do light usage or something, and all of a sudden, your wife texts you about something, and let me go check that, or let me see what Amazon said about their delivery time or something, and before you know it, you're there. So that might be something. The other thing that I would mention, sort of tangentially to this, is be really careful about iPhone theft. I've had several friends lose iPhones recently traveling, especially in Europe, especially in London, which apparently is the number one worldwide site for stealing iPhones. So keep it in your pocket. I have a lanyard that I use for photo shoots. I might actually just keep it on the lanyard, and in a pocket. So, but yeah, I would, in this day and age of 5G, really, if there's reasonable 5G, it's going to be better than most public Wi-Fi's anyway.
Gary, any
Well,
ideas?
yeah, I will follow up agree with Bob and Peter and Chris. I don't use too much or visit that many places with public Wi-Fi. And like them, I don't do any banking or money on my iPhone outside. I use the library Wi-Fi, reading, some email, and the church and the orchestra that I'm thinking of. And now from what we've discussed, Marty, I'm going to order or take a subscription to a VPN service to be extra careful if I have a need for it, that I think I'll use it a few times. So that'll be an extra layer. And Peter, I do have two-factor authentication even at home on my securities and banking. Marty?
Yeah, I wind up using public Wi-Fi more than I suspect I want to. just because traveling through airports, also public spaces where I'm in and I'm doing work. I generally don't do, if I'm using the Wi-Fi, I'm not using it to do banking or doing any medical stuff. If I want to purchase something on Amazon, I do it from my phone and I do it without the public Wi-Fi, so at least I have that layer of security. The two-factor authentication seems to be a necessity for everything that I do these days, from school to banking to whatever. So that's as Peter suggested, that's another thing to consider. I have found public Wi-Fi to not be very good anyways. So if I do have a device that has 3G on it, or excuse me, 5G on it, I will just go ahead and I know I'm not going to run off all of my data in the time that I'm there. So I will go ahead and run the 5G in order to get it. Or if I have a device that doesn't have, like a laptop that doesn't have a 5G connection, I'll go ahead and hotspot it to my phone and have a secure enough password where no one's going to crack into that system to get into my Wi-Fi. So yeah, I don't do public Wi-Fi. I probably do it more than what most of you guys are indicating, but generally I forget that I'm in a public area. And sometimes when I'm using public Wi-Fi or when I switch to it, it's so slow that I'm like, why is this website taking so long? Oh, that's right. I'm using public Wi-Fi. Let me switch that off. Let me maybe even turn my phone off and back on, and then go ahead and use the 5G connection to do whatever I'm going to do on my phone or my iPad, which also has cellular. I can do work on it that way. But traveling is tough. With regard to theft of the iPhone, I think Chris makes a great point. One of the things that I've done is I bought a cheaper iPhone just for travel. It's a great iPhone. It's the 16E. It is tremendous, but it makes it less. If I'm walking around with my 16 Pro Max, yeah, those are the people are scouting for those like catalytic converters these days, stealing them off of cars. But I deliberately bought this iPhone that is a new model, but a cheaper model, and it doesn't have all the bells and whistles on it. But I'm beginning to like it so much more with this, with scaling it down a bit. It kind of helps me with the theft concern and helps me with continuing to do my work. It's lighter, it's smaller, it's easier for me to put it in my pocket, not put it down somewhere. You mentioned Gary mentioned Will about his traveling, and before he left, and we talked about some of this on the last Gear Up and Go, I gave him a bunch of tech, and I said, pick what you need, take what you want. And he's taking a Solus, which is a MiFi system. And those things have built-in VPNs and protection. He's also taking a device that I bought him one to test out, and then I realized he might be gone long enough where I'm not going to get it back in any quick time. And I've got some trips coming up, and it is basically an Ethernet connector for hotels. So you can connect directly into the hotel Ethernet, which I think will help with the speeds that we're getting out of hotels, because you're going directly into the internet. Ethernet, you're not competing with other Wi-Fi people trying to be on the hotel public Wi-Fi. And it also has its own VPN built into it. So it's kind of a double layered device. I'll hopefully get better speed out of it. So I, of course, ordered one for myself. And when I travel in the next week or so, I'll be testing it out to see if it really works the way I hope it'll work. So yeah, that's Wi-Fi is particularly for traveling is a big concern. And hotel stays are a big concern too. And plan to do a lot of trips this summer on and off. Gary and I are going to Macstock, and Will is coming with us, of course. But so I see myself using a lot of potentially being stuck with hotel Wi-Fi, and looking for ways around it. Question number 2: what steps do you manage to use? Your public Wi-Fi. Is there any things that you put into place?
I am a current subscriber to Windscribe VPN. I've done this upon the recommendation of Kevin, who is our expert at answering questions at our Mac user group meetings. And it's very affordable, and it is something in the range of $2 a month if you buy annually. And you can use it on all of your devices, and there's no time limit on that. So that is, I put a link to Windscribe in the show notes. Additionally, one topic we haven't touched on, and that is what's called juice jacking. If you are at a airport or hospital or a school and you find a place where you can plug in and get some juice for your phone or tablet, you don't know if there's anybody on the other end of that portal taking your information or getting into your device and extracting data. So there is such a thing as a little adapter that you plug your cable into, and then you plug that into the wall at the airport. And that device will only pass power. It will not pass data. In fact, some of them are even clear, and you can see there's only 2 wires in them for the power to come through. I found several of them, and I put links to them also again in the show notes. And that's something that I do recommend. And I think I have one, and I just ordered several more. And Gary and Marty, when I see you at Macstock, I have one for you. Unless Marty buys all there are on Amazon before Macstock comes around, I have one for you.
I still have not figured out what else I have to buy for Macstock yet, so I'll try and avoid doing that. Peter.
Yeah, whenever I travel, if I connect to a network, I use a VPN, and for a long time I've used and recommend ExpressVPN. It's not the least expensive. In fact, it's one of the more expensive ones. But if you buy a chunk of time, like Gary did, you can get it. You can bring the price down quite a bit. It's fast. The reason I use it is it doesn't slow you down over whatever else your connectivity would give you. And I've also used it because of other features it had. I actually used a VPN more before I retired than now, because I would often be at different schools, at different places. And one of the things that's easy to do with ExpressVPN is connect to local printers at the same time you're connected virtually to the network. It also has other features that a VPN will give you. At the library here near my house, if I'm there at the library and hooked up, they block certain services. If you go through a VPN, you can access those services that are otherwise blocked. Recently, and this is for tinkerers like myself, I've been building my own private network. I use some software called Tailscale. And the thing that you need for Tailscale to work, and it doesn't cost you anything if you have some limited number of devices, of which, even though I have a lot of devices, I don't have too many. It doesn't cost you anything, but you have to have something running at your home all the time. So I have a Synology set of disks running that I keep lots of things on. And I initially got into Tailscale so I could connect to those files from afar. But the other thing I've discovered I can do is run some software on the Synology that then allows me to go out to the internet, and I've started to use it as my virtual private network the last couple times I've traveled, because I used it the first time when I realized at my daughter's house up in Vermont that I wanted to connect to my bank, something that's unusual for me to do, but I wanted to do that time. And it needed me to jump through a lot of hoops because it says, "Hey, you're in some other state, and we're not sure who you say you are." And I thought, well, I'll see what happens if I try that through my Synology. So next time, I think I was in Rhode Island, I connected up to my Synology and then to my bank, and it figured I was coming from my house because I was, as far as it was thinking, coming from my house. So Tailscale is a nice solution. And the one thing that I sort of do when something peculiar is happening, and this isn't quite a Wi-Fi thing, is there's a program I've used for probably 20 years now called Little Snitch. And it will look at different programs on your computer and will report to you when and where they are connecting to the internet. So it looks at outgoing traffic, and that's often quite illuminating. If you say, wow, my computer's using a lot of cycles, and oh, wow, this piece of software that I thought was great freeware, oh, wow, it's sending reports out to the internet every 3 minutes. Well, that makes me want to ditch that thing. But it's the kind of software that might, somehow be connected with ways in which you're assaulted through different cyber attacks. So I thought I'd mention it, and I did provide a link for the show notes for that as well.
Yeah, I've used Little Snitch a long time ago, and I was surprised by all the data I got back about people attempting to ping my computer. And it was like, holy cow. Because you're not seeing it, a light is not flashing every time it happens. But it was surprising. A thing that scared me about Little Snitch, and that was I wasn't very adept at using these kinds of softwares, was that I was afraid I was going to screw up some of the architecture on my system by shutting things down that I really needed. And it didn't. I wasn't bright enough to discern which ones are threats and which ones are operating things that I'm actually doing, and not somebody maliciously coming in to do stuff. But it is really a wake up when you look at it and see all that's going on in terms of traffic. Chris?
Yeah, and for the reasons
Oh.
you said, Marty, I never run Little Snitch continuously, which is one thing they recommend. I use it to diagnose a problem, and then I take it out of the system. So
Yeah.
that's how I would recommend using it.
Well, I'm not sure how much I can add here. I had put in the show notes for ourselves that I'd like to hear more about Bob and Peter's solutions, and we've heard those, and they're most interesting. I guess one thing I might have a question, and I'm not sure of the relevance here, but there are rumors that Apple may have modem chips in future laptops, and or cell chips, basically, through their modems, and be able to do direct cellular connection to laptops. Anybody venture a guess on how that would impact things?
I've heard the rumor too. I think it's very cool. I would like that option. However, often not sure I want to run all of my laptop interactions with the world using a 5G modem. I mean, I have to be in a faster speed Wi-Fi, and the demands I place on my machine in a tough situation or in a tight spot. Yeah, I would turn it on versus having to do a hotspot link with it. And the new C modems are just incredible. That's one of the big surprises in terms of their performance and in terms of their battery life. Their low power drain in terms of compared to the Qualcomm modems. So yeah, I saw that rumor too. We'll see. The next laptop that rolls out will probably be a Pro, and we'll see if that option is included on it.
I definitely would pay an upcharge for a modem in my MacBook. I have a cellular modem in my iPad, and I love it. When I'm traveling, it's set to a different carrier than my phone. I know people say, "Oh, you can always hotspot to your phone," but it's just more convenient having that direct connection that's there. You open it up, boom, it's there, and I think they'll sell a ton of computers when they put a modem in it. Although it does depend on how the carriers charge for it. On
Yeah.
my iPad, I can do the same thing with my VPN. Is I can buy uh, 10 gigabytes of connectivity for my iPad that either it either go, it lasts either for those 10 gigabytes or I don't know what it is, 150 days, whichever comes first. And that's $10. That doesn't seem crazy expensive to me to say I'm going on a vacation, sign up for it. And if I drain it before I get home, sign up for another $10. If I had to sign up and say, oh my gosh, it's $30 a month to hook up my laptop, then I might not want to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, Will is traveling with a Solis, Solis. It's a MiFi system. And the thing about that, you think, oh, this is a great solution. Well, if you can't get a cell signal in the area you're at and you get lousy cell signal, having a MiFi isn't going to help it because it's reliant on the cell signal. All it does is give you the opportunity to have data and a data stream that you can connect to non-modem based devices like laptops and such. So I sent him out with a bunch of equipment to field test it for our show on Sundays called Gear Up and Go. And I'm anxious for him to get it to work and then see if we can talk about it on one of the shows. So, Chris, do you have anything more?
No, I don't think so. I think we
Okay.
covered it well.
Gary, do you have anything to add?
Gary has nothing to add. Gary's grateful as a listener, and that's it.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn, and I will say that ExpressVPN is probably what I use. The problem is I forget to turn it on, and I find myself, as soon as you go into a Wi-Fi, you're supposed to turn it on, etc. But I forget to do it. I've got it set up so it will automatically start on certain devices, and that's helpful. That prevents me from running into problems. Sometimes VPNs also screw up what you want to do. So, but what I mean by that is because it's phantoming you at another location. If the thing that you're going to do, like watching YouTube TV, has got you registered in Cleveland and it looks like your signal's now coming from New York, it will mess with those kinds of connections. Sometimes when I have to get into the university, it's like, wait a minute, you're in I get the same sort of errors. So VPNs aren't totally foolproof that way. And I guess there are ways that you can tweak them, but that's beyond what most common users know how to do. I was concerned about Will using public Wi-Fi when he was on his trip, and I said, "Hey, look, and I just checked into my ExpressVPN account, and I can add like 8 more people on it. Here's the." He goes, "Oh, I already got ExpressVPN." So I was happy to hear that he was running that. A lot of the tech folk that I hang out with, besides you guys, talk about Surfshark as a good VPN. I've looked at it. It's a little bit pricier. There is one function on it that I really like. That is that for of course, the premium version of it, that goes out and it will scrub your data from sites. It will go out and check sites and do that process for you, so you don't have to either do it manually, or you don't have to, or you don't have that option at all with certain VPNs. So I'm tempted to get into some month by month with it, just to test out I think they call it incogni service that's part of it. And as I said, like other tech folks and shows that I'm on, half of them will say ExpressVPN, and half of them will say Surfshark. So I looked into that as a possibility. I want to switch just to show you the device I was telling about. This is the create your own, basically portable travel router that also has within it a VPN WireGuard, which is really important. If you're looking at VPN systems, they should have WireGuard as a function. And you basically, it's a little bit smaller than a pack of cigarettes, and you can just plug it in, and it will set up your own Wi-Fi 6, and steps down from there. But you can see on the front of it, it has for the Ethernet connection, both in and out, if you want to do that. And it looks like a pretty nifty device. So I've got one, Will's got one, and particularly for me, if I want to try and do some podcasts, hotel Wi-Fi isn't going to cut it. And I've been able to do it sometimes with the Solus, sometimes with my phone and the 5G. I'd be curious to see what I get with this, if I get anything with this using the Ethernet, direct connection to the Ethernet. Because there are different ranges for doing things with Zoom versus doing things with Ecamm. And I'd like to be more portable. So when I go to Washington on Tuesday, or when I go to Washington, on Monday, I know that I'm in a hotel, and the hotel Wi-Fi is not enough. Maybe the Ethernet connection will, and I can do my Monday show, and I can do my Tuesday show if I need to from that location. So I guess time maybe to share a few sites that we have, and these will be in the show notes. Again, returning to AARP, they have a site that's how to use free public Wi-Fi and keep your personal data secure. It's a good resource for folks who are just kind of breaking into it. No pun intended, but it gives you some tips in doing that. And then this comes from seniorlessons.com. Navigating the Perils of Public Wi-Fi, a senior's guide to safe internet use. And it talks about public Wi-Fi. It also has reference to different kinds of scams that are available. And then this comes from the Federal Trade Commission, consumer advice. Are public Wi-Fi networks safe? What you need to know. And best practices for protecting your personal information, and ways to report scammers. But the last one I have is from Webbit Services, how to safely use public Wi-Fi networks. And this, I think, it's got 7 safety tips for using public Wi-Fi. Don't was the first suggestion. Use mobile hotspots or data instead. So many of us talked about how we just do our hotspot with our phone. Turn off network discovery. Don't allow your device to connect automatically. Limit file sharing. Use a VPN. So all of these are good ideas that come out of these articles. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. Those will be in with the other articles and links that people have spoken about on the show tonight. Those will be in the show notes of the video, as well as show notes of the podcast. So if you're looking at the stream on YouTube, you'll see all these links embedded and information embedded for you. And on the podcast, you just look at the information page on the particular episode, and you will get the links to that too. We have 5 people in the chat room right now. They are very
Wow.
quiet. I'm going to say hi, chat room, and see if anybody says hi back. But thank you for joining us, for those of you in the chat room. Anything else before we close out? Gary, you want to ask me about MacStock?
Well, as a user, as one of us seasoned Mac users who, you're a presenter. Bob's like me, though. But the question, Bob, would be what's in it for me, or why should I go to MacStock? And I have a little bit of an answer, but I want to know what your answer is. So, say you're making a pitch to the people that are listening and watching this program, and you're asking them to join you and Bob and me and Will at MacStock.
Bob, do you have
Well,
anything to add
Gary,
first? Bob, do you
Gary,
have,
that would be the people at MacStock. People there, a lot of them are podcasters that you know, including the Mac Geek Gab and Mac Voices. Mac Voices is run by Chuck Joyner, and I think of him as the Walter Cronkite of Apple podcasting. You invite him into your living room every evening, and you can pretty much trust what he has to say. You can talk to these people. You can go there by yourself, not knowing anybody. And when you leave, you have a whole bunch of new friends, along with all the learning, information, and data that you've gotten from the presentations.
yeah,
If you're a Mac user group leader, as I am, I tend to twist some arms while I'm there and get presenters for our Mac user group throughout the year. This year, I think I had 5 out of the 12 months.
yeah, I'm trying to make a pitch for it. What Bob said about you can go there by yourself. I think you might go there by yourself, but you sit down to somebody else who has the same next to somebody else who has the same interests that you have. You're there because you're interested in Mac, and you start a conversation, and suddenly the person on the other side of you joins in, and so you begin to feel a connection to folks. And they have activities and lunches and things where you're rotating around and meeting new people, besides meeting the folks that you've listened to on podcasts or seen in other media form. It's pretty cool that way. Now, unfortunately, the thing with that is it also means an airplane ticket for a lot of folks and a hotel stay, and it can be costly. The other option is the virtual pass, which I know Peter and Gary have partaken in previous years, and I don't think he has anything up currently about
Yeah.
the virtual pass. But that gets you access to all of the presentations, all of the workshops, which are the longer presentations,
Yeah.
about a month to 3 weeks after the MacStock is over.
Marty, I was just checking. I don't think airfare is quite that expensive. Exactly. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about, but I was checking for someone to come from Boise to Raleigh, and you can pick up a round trip ticket for $450, which
Yeah.
seems doable. But the other thing that Bob led on to is with Chuck Joyner, the last year, or maybe the year that Peter and I did the actual virtual, Chuck Joyner interviews all the presenters before MacStock. And
Yeah.
I agree with you, Bob. I think he's an extremely talented interviewer, especially one-on-one. And then like Marty, when he was using Ecamm with you, it was like both of you are learning, sharing. So it isn't, there's a lot coming out of him too from his experience. So I agree with Bob. I think he's an excellent find.
Yeah, I was watching the Naples mug today, and Dave Ginsburg was on the mug talking about Vision Pro and the 16E. And then he made a plug for MacStock, and he spent some time talking about MacStock. And somebody in the chat said, "I'm going to live an hour and a half away from there," and I was texting back, "You need to come." And since it's convenient, you can drive over, save you and you could probably drive home each night if you wanted to. But it's available either, in real time at the MacStock Expo conference and expo.com. You can find out the location, which is in Crystal Lake, or more information will be revealed about the virtual pass. Now, if you do come, you can use a coupon for a discount. The code is PodTalk50 at checkout, and that'll save you $50. So PodTalk50, if you're going to be there in the person and in the flesh, you'll save some money with that by using that as part of the checkout code. The information continues to be added to MacStock Conference and Expo.com, so you might want to look at that as a starter. But don't look at it once. Look at it in a week or two. Look at it, and you'll see there's much more depth to what's going to be happening. It's 71 days away or something like that at this point. So thanks for the question, Gary, and thanks for the opportunity to talk about MacStock and kind of get Bob's perspectives of being there. And I'm excited for you to join in this year with Will. So stay healthy, and we'll have a good 3 guys doing like a road trip from Ohio. But two old guys who will have to stop and pee every 45 minutes.
I'm looking forward to meeting Bob in the flesh too.
Yeah.
And all the rest of the people that you've seen. So it's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think, and it's no secret, I think Dave Ginsburg is going to be presenting on how to do screen capturing. So somebody said, "What am I going to learn there?" Well, you're going to learn a lot of different things. You're going to get excited about a lot of different things. You're going to maybe spend some money because you've learned about a lot of things that you want. And, if it's something that just doesn't appeal to you, just wait 45 minutes because there'll be another person up doing something different. So check your email or whatever you're going to do. Yeah, Bob.
I have one more comment about MacStock for those people attending, such as Gary. Gary, you're going to have 3 lunches, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Each day, each lunch, sit at a different table with different people. Then you're going to have more friends at the end of lunch than you started with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I say that at all conferences. It's like, don't, like my students, I say, don't hang out with your friends, your student friends from Kent at conferences. Go meet other people. You can hang out with your Kent friends anytime you want to. And it's a way to really network and meet kind of wonderful people. So yeah, I plan to ignore Gary the whole time. No, I won't. And I'm excited to see my son's interaction with people. That's the other thing that's going to be cool. So enough about MacStock. Let's wrap this up, this episode up. Our next live episode will be Wednesday, May 7th at 9 p.m. through YouTube, where you can watch this crew at youtube.com/@OldMacGang. You can always pick up the podcast or video later if you missed the live show. Please share this with your Mac user groups, other Mac users or Apple users that you know that are part of our generation or maybe your parents' generation. Share it and spread the word along. Our music bed is by Philip Gross Marrakesh, courtesy of the Free Music Archive. More information about this podcast and others can be found at the website thepodtalk.net. Thanks to Gary, Chris, Peter, and Bob for joining us, and thank you for being part of the Old Mac gang. We got stickers now. We got really cool stickers, so show up to MacStock to get your sticker. See you next time.